Ambassador Thessaly Vonn had prepared for this assignment thoroughly. 18 months of study, the complete Conclave xenocultural database on humanity, 437 volumes, which she had read in full, which was more than most diplomats read in an entire career, which she had done because she was meticulous and because the posting to Earth's orbital embassy was considered prestigious, and because she believed, genuinely and completely, that 18 months of preparation was sufficient to understand any species. She had been on station for 11 days. She was revising that belief. It started with the intake form. Standard procedure. Every new embassy posting required a cultural orientation document, a summary of the host species' primary social customs, communication preferences, dietary requirements, and recreational activities. Thessaly had assigned the recreational activities section to her junior attache, Reem, on the grounds that it was typically the least important section and Reem needed the practice. Reem had submitted the completed section at 0900 on day 3. Thessaly had read it at 0930. At 0932, she had called Reem into her office. This section, she said. Yes, Ambassador. The recreational activities section. Yes. You compiled this yourself? From primary sources? Cross-referenced with 6 independent databases. Reem said, with the careful precision of someone who sensed they were about to need to have defended their methodology. And 3 direct human interviews. Thessaly looked at the document, looked at Reem, looked at the document again. They do this, she said carefully, voluntarily. Yes, Ambassador. For enjoyment. That's what all 6 databases confirm. A long pause. All of it. Reem's expression communicated sympathy without technically showing it. I had the same reaction. I checked everything twice. Thessaly set the document down with the specific care of someone handling something they aren't entirely sure is safe. Give me the full file, she said. The full file arrived at 1100. It was longer than Thessaly expected, considerably longer. She read it in order, methodically, the way she read everything, completely, carefully, without skipping ahead, giving each section the full attention it deserved before moving to the next. She made it through Section 1, Physical Recreation, in 40 minutes. Then she sat quietly for a while. Then she read Section 1 again. The entry that stopped her first was something called rock climbing. The database definition was straightforward enough. The voluntary ascent of vertical stone surfaces using hands, feet, and specialized equipment for the purpose of reaching the top. She read the purpose clause twice. For the purpose of reaching the top. She pulled up the supplementary notes. The top, the notes clarified, was not a destination in any functional sense. There was nothing at the top. No resource, no shelter, no strategic advantage. The top was simply the top, the point at which the climbing stopped and the human looked down at where they had come from and felt, according to cross-referenced emotional response surveys, good about it. Thessaly made note. Moved to the next entry. Marathon running. Voluntary locomotion across 42 kilometers of terrain. No pursuit. No destination of functional value. Performed in large groups. Considered a significant personal achievement. Some participants cry at the finish line. She made another note. Spicy food consumption. The deliberate ingestion of compounds that activate pain receptors in the mouth and throat. Pursued recreationally. Competitive variants exist. The human who tolerates the highest pain level is considered. She checked the word 3 times. Impressive. Thessaly set down her notes. Looked at the ceiling. Picked them back up. She hadn't reached Section 2 yet. Section 2 was called Extreme Sports. She made herself a cup of tea first. It didn't help. Section 2 opened with something called skydiving. Thessaly read the definition carefully. Then she read it again with the specific attention of someone hoping the words will rearrange themselves into something more reasonable. They didn't. Skydiving, the voluntary exit from a functioning aircraft at altitude, followed by unassisted free fall toward the ground, arrested at the last viable moment by a fabric deceleration device. She highlighted 3 words. Voluntary. Functioning. Last, the aircraft, the note specified, was not malfunctioning. The human was not being ejected. No emergency was occurring. They simply opened the door and stepped out into the open air from an altitude that the Conclave's biological hazard registry would have classified as immediately lethal without equipment. With equipment, it was classified as a hobby. She turned the page. Base jumping was apparently skydiving with less altitude and more confidence. Free solo climbing was rock climbing without the equipment, which she had already found alarming with the equipment. Cave diving combined the complete darkness of underground cave systems with the oxygen dependency of underwater environments and appeared to exist specifically to place humans in situations where a single equipment malfunction produced outcomes the database described diplomatically as non-survivable. The participation rates were not small. She checked them 3 times. Reem knocked at 1400 and entered to find the ambassador sitting very still at her desk, surrounded by highlighted documents, empty teacups, and the expression of someone who has been trying to locate a logical framework for 3 hours and has not found one. Ambassador, you've been in here since. Did you read Section 3? Thessaly asked. Reem paused. The competitive recreational section? Yes, I did. The one that contains, Thessaly checked her notes, professional wrestling. Yes, where humans perform choreographed physical combat for audience entertainment. Yes, voluntarily. Enthusiastically, Reem said, the audiences are also enthusiastic. There's a great deal of, she searched for the word, noise. Thessaly looked at her highlighted documents. Get me a human, she said. Reem blinked. Ambassador. A human. For interview. Someone who does, she gestured at the documents, these things, any of them. I need to ask questions. Which questions specifically? Thessaly looked at 400 pages of recreational activities data. All of them, she said. The human they sent was named Specialist Juno Park. Thessaly had requested someone familiar with interspecies diplomatic protocol. The embassy's human liaison office had sent Juno, who was 31, wore her hair in a practical knot, and arrived at the ambassador's office carrying a coffee cup the size of a small structural component. She sat down across from Thessaly with the easy, unself-conscious comfort of someone who is genuinely unbothered by most things. Thessaly found this immediately suspicious, given what she had spent the last 6 hours reading. Thank you for coming, Thessaly said. Of course. Juno looked at the documents spread across the desk. That's a lot of highlighted paper. I have been reviewing your species' recreational profile. Oh. Juno's expression was pleasant, untroubled. Fun, right? The word fun landed in the room and just sat there. I have questions, Thessaly said carefully. Sure. Starting with, she consulted her notes. Rock climbing. Great sport. You do this. When I can, yeah? There's a good outdoor wall about 40 minutes from my apartment. Thessaly looked at her. You climb vertical stone surfaces voluntarily. For no functional purpose. Juno considered this. I mean, it's good exercise. Mentally engaging. You have to problem solve in real time. And the view from the top is usually. The database notes indicate there is nothing at the top. There's a view of where you came from. Right? Which you could have seen without climbing. Juno opened her mouth, closed it, tilted her head slightly. I mean, technically yes, but it's different when you've climbed it. Different how? A pause. It just is. Thessaly made a note. Unable to provide functional justification. Appears unbothered by this. She moved to the next item. Spicy food. Juno's face did something that Thessaly's expression reading training identified as genuine enthusiasm. Oh, absolutely. You eat compounds that cause pain. They cause a sensation, Juno said. It's more complicated than. The database specifically uses the word pain. The database is being dramatic. She took a sip of coffee. Do you want to try some? I have hot sauce in my bag. The silence that followed was considerable. You brought it, Thessaly said slowly. To a diplomatic meeting. I bring it everywhere. Juno said this with the complete sincerity of someone describing a perfectly normal behavior. You never know when food's going to need help. Thessaly looked at Reem. Reem looked at the ceiling. Thessaly did not try the hot sauce. She did, however, add it to her notes under a new subsection she created on the spot titled, Items Humans Carry Voluntarily That Serve No Obvious Survival Purpose. The list was longer than she expected within 4 minutes. Section 2, she said. Juno settled back in her chair with the relaxed posture of someone enjoying a conversation. That continued to be suspicious. Skydiving, Thessaly said. Done it 8 times. The number 8 landed in the room. 8, Thessaly repeated. The first time was tandem. That's where you're attached to an instructor. After that I got licensed and went solo. She paused. The third jump is when it really clicks. The first 2 you're just processing. By the third one you can actually... You have done this 8 times, Thessaly said, with the careful emphasis of someone making sure a number has been properly received. You have voluntarily exited a functioning aircraft 8 times. 9, actually. I miscounted. A silence. Why? Thessaly said, not aggressively, with the genuine, open bewilderment of someone who has run out of frameworks. Why 9 times? If you survived the first time, which statistically was not, the statistics are better than people think. Why continue? Juno was quiet for a moment, genuinely considering it, which Thessaly appreciated. She had half expected a non-answer, another it just is, another response that gestured at meaning without locating it. Instead, Juno said, because the first 3 seconds after you exit the aircraft, your brain is completely silent. Thessaly waited. Not scared silent. Not overwhelmed silent. Just quiet. Every piece of noise your brain makes all day, everything it's processing and worrying and planning gone. For about 3 seconds you're just there. Completely there. Nothing else. She paused. It's the cleanest feeling I know. The room was quiet. Thessaly looked at her notes. Then at Juno. You fall out of aircraft, she said slowly, to make your brain stop talking. When you say it like that, is that accurate? A beat. Yes, Juno admitted. Thessaly wrote it down. Underlined it. Stared at it. Looked up. Does it work? Juno smiled. Every time. Something shifted very slightly in Thessaly's expression. Something small that Reem noticed from across the room and filed away for later. Next item, the ambassador said briskly. Competitive eating. Juno brightened considerably. Thessaly deeply regretted asking. Competitive eating took 11 minutes to explain. Thessaly needed all 11. The concept itself was not complicated. The complications arose in the details, the volumes involved, the time constraints, the specific subcategories, hot dogs, chicken wings, pies, dumplings, each with their own dedicated competitive circuit, their own records, their own champions who were celebrated for the achievement with what Juno described as genuine community enthusiasm. The current world record for hot dogs, Juno said, is 76 in 10 minutes. Thessaly's pen stopped moving. 76, she said. In 10 minutes, yes. The same food item. 76 times. Consecutively. It's a refined technique. There's strategy involved. Water management, compression method, pacing. There is a technique, Thessaly said. Humans have developed and refined a technique for consuming the same food item 76 times in 10 minutes. Multiple techniques. Actually, different competitors have different. I understand. Thessaly set her pen down. Picked it up. Set it down again. Is this? How many people watch this? Juno told her. The pen stayed down. They had been in the office for 3 hours when Reem quietly brought in a second round of tea and a plate of what the human kitchen had sent up as a courtesy snack, small, neutral crackers that posed no philosophical challenges. Juno ate 3 of them, then looked at the plate. Do you have any hot sauce? No, Reem said. It's fine. They're good plain. She didn't sound entirely convinced. Thessaly had been reviewing her notes in silence for 4 minutes. The document now ran to 31 pages. She had sections on extreme sports, competitive recreation, voluntary discomfort practices, and a subsection on something called cold water swimming that she had needed 2 separate clarifications to fully believe. I want to understand something, she said finally. Juno looked up. The thread. Thessaly gestured at her notes. I have been looking for it for 3 hours. A unifying principle. Something that connects. She picked up a page: marathon running, hot sauce, skydiving, cave diving, competitive eating, and she checked something called axe throwing, which I have questions about, but we may be out of time. It's exactly what it sounds like, Juno offered. I assumed. Thessaly set the page down. The thread. What is it? Juno was quiet for a moment, genuinely thinking. The same quality of consideration she had given to the skydiving question. Honest, unhurried, not reaching for an easy answer. I think, she said slowly, we like to know what we're made of. Thessaly waited. Not in a dramatic way. Just practically. You do the hard thing, the uncomfortable thing, the thing that asks something real from you, and afterward you know something about yourself you didn't know before. She paused. The mountain doesn't care if you climb it. The race doesn't care if you finish. But you find out something true about yourself in the trying. And that, she thought for a moment, that's worth something. To us, anyway. The office was quiet. Reem had stopped pretending to organize documents. Thessaly looked at 31 pages of notes. At hot sauce and skydiving and 76 hot dogs and cold water and vertical stone faces with nothing at the top. Looked at Juno. Something shifted in her expression again. Larger this time. More visible. Axe throwing, she said. Juno blinked. Ambassador. You mentioned axe throwing. Thessaly straightened her notes with precise, careful movements. I have questions. We still have time. The corner of Juno's mouth moved. Yeah, she said. We do. Axe throwing took 7 minutes. Thessaly had questions about the target system, the regulation distances, the weight categories, and whether the axe was always returned to the thrower or whether retrieval was considered part of the activity. It was returned. She noted this as the most sensible thing she had encountered all afternoon. The interview ended at 1700. Juno stood, collected her coffee cup, empty now, which seemed to represent some kind of personal accomplishment, and paused at the door. Same time tomorrow, she said. We didn't get to Section 4. What is Section 4? Hobby collecting. Thessaly looked at her notes. I don't see. It didn't make the main database. Too broad. Juno leaned against the doorframe. Humans collect things. Stamps, coins, vintage audio equipment, specific types of rocks. One guy I know has 412 ceramic frogs. A silence. 412. He knows all their names. Thessaly wrote it down without being entirely sure why. Same time tomorrow, she said. She filed her first weekly report that evening. The format was standard: cultural observations, diplomatic progress notes, recommended areas for further study. She had written hundreds of them across 12 postings. They were typically precise, brief, and professionally unremarkable. This one ran to 19 pages. Her division director read it the following morning and called her immediately. Thessaly. His voice carried the specific quality of someone holding several reactions simultaneously. This report. Yes. The section on voluntary discomfort practices. Yes. And he paused, the ceramic frogs, pending further investigation. A long pause. Your assessment summary. At the end. He read it aloud. Slowly. You wrote, humanity's recreational behavior, initially presenting as irrational and statistically hazardous, reveals on closer examination a coherent and deeply consistent internal logic. This species pursues discomfort, challenge, and voluntary risk, not despite their intelligence, but as an expression of it. They are, in the most literal sense, always practicing. For what, exactly, remains the most interesting open question in my 18 years of diplomatic service. He stopped reading. The line was quiet for a moment. Thessaly, you've been there 11 days. Yes. And you think there? I think we have been reading the file, she said, and missing the point of it. She looked at her notes. 31 pages. Hot sauce and stone faces, and 3 seconds of silence in open air. The recreational activities aren't separate from who they are. They're the whole explanation. Another pause. I'm extending your posting, he said. I assumed you would. 6 months. I'll need 12. She met Juno the next morning at 0900. Juno arrived with 2 coffees, one for herself, one she placed in front of Thessaly without asking, with the practical generosity of someone who has decided a person needs something and sees no reason to make it complicated. Thessaly looked at it. Then at Juno. I reviewed section 4 last night, she said. The collecting? I have 47 questions. Juno sat down, settled in, the easy, unself-conscious comfort of someone genuinely unbothered by most things. Start wherever you want, she said. Thessaly's final report, filed at the end of her 12-month posting, cited subsequently in 14 separate Conclave diplomatic training programs, and eventually included in the standard xenocultural orientation curriculum under the heading Case Studies in Species Misclassification, contained one paragraph that every new diplomat was required to read before their first human posting. It said, "Do not mistake their leisure for frivolity. Do not mistake their risk-taking for recklessness. Do not mistake their collections, their competitions, their voluntary suffering, their inexplicable loyalty to ceramic frogs, for anything less than what they are, a species in permanent conversation with its own limits, perpetually curious about where those limits actually are. They recreate the way other species train. They play the way other species prepare. When you finally understand that, you will understand everything else about them that previously made no sense. It will not take 18 months. It took me 11 days and 1 interview and a cup of coffee I didn't ask for. Start there.